There's a fine line between fame and farsand. Meghan Markle just got dragged across it on live television. The stage, Saturday Night Live, the assassin, Colin Jost, and the weapon. A monologue so sharp it sliced through years of carefully constructed narrative in under 10 minutes. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you enjoy unfiltered breakdowns of royal drama, Hollywood meltdowns, and media moments that shake the culture, this is the place for you. Now, back to the takedown that stopped the room cold. Colin Jost didn't just tell jokes, he detonated a cultural truth bomb. With his deadpan delivery and trademark smirk, he exposed the very things so many had been thinking but were too afraid to say out loud. Meghan Markle's brand isn't empowering anymore, it's exhausting what started as a cheeky jab at her newest jam brand snowballed into a full-blown comedy demolition. The moment he dropped the line, "She's not the people's princess, she's the PR princess," you could feel the oxygen leave the room. It wasn't just funny, it was fatal. And online, that line tore through social media like wildfire. Hashtags like #FakeDiana and #PRPrincess weren't just trending, they were exploding. Memes, remixes, reaction videos, you name it. Meghan's image wasn't being mocked, it was being dissected. But here's the thing, the timing of this couldn't have been worse. Meghan's been on another rebrand spree, new shows, new ventures, and of course, the eternal contradiction, asking for privacy while chasing press. It's a balancing act she's tried to master for years, but Colin, he wasn't buying it with one smirk. He lobbed a grenade. Meghan wants privacy right after signing another Netflix deal and launching a jam brand. The audience lost it. This wasn't gentle ribbing, it was calculated satire, and it landed like a knockout punch. But what made this takedown so lethal wasn't the joke itself, it was what it represented. That joke became a mirror the world had been itching to hold up, because, let's be honest, somewhere along the way, Meghan's story stopped feeling like a story and started feeling like a sales pitch. And that's exactly where we'll pick up in the next section, where Colin exposed the illusion of authenticity, and Hollywood started taking notes. Asterisk behind the laughs, there was a silent gasp in Hollywood, because while the audience was cackling, producers, executives, and PR handlers were sweating. Colin Jost didn't just get a few chuckles, he got a cultural standing ovation. And when the public laughs that hard, industry gatekeepers start asking a terrifying question: are we backing the wrong brand? According to insiders, even Meghan's biggest sponsors, Netflix, Spotify, and some lifestyle partners, started reviewing the public's reaction. It wasn't just bad optics, it was brand fatigue, a term quietly passed around boardrooms in the hours after the SNL episode aired. One consultant summed it up perfectly: if the people are laughing at you, not with you, you've lost control of your narrative. And in Meghan's case, the control was slipping fast. See, this wasn't just a joke about jam or another jab at a media deal. This was about the widening chasm between Meghan's image and her impact. The public wasn't angry anymore, they were numb. And that's more dangerous than outrage, because outrage keeps you relevant. Apathy erases you. Colin Jost didn't invent the criticism, he just gave it a microphone, and the people, they sang along loudly. But it wasn't only Meghan who caught strays. Prince Harry, once the lovable rogue royal, got roasted too. Jost joked that the UK might trade back the couple like an expired export deal. All Britain demands, he smirked, is that we keep these two. The burn was subtle, but the message was clear. America's honeymoon phase with the Sixes might be over. The most brutal moment, though, it came in the form of comparison. Just held up Meghan against Kate Middleton, not with insults, but with brutal simplicity. Kate smiles, waves, raises 3 kids, he said. Meghan gives a TED Talk every time she toasts bread. Ouch, it wasn't just a joke, it was a summary. A summary of how the public sees 2 very different royal women, one quiet, the other constant. And that contrast, it's been growing louder than any press release Meghan's team can. Right, coming up, next, we dive into the media silence that followed. The influencers, the journalists, even the loyal defenders, who suddenly said nothing. Asterisk what followed. The broadcast wasn't a wave of outrage, it was something far more damning. Silence. The usual defenders, the Instagram influencers who once gushed over Meghan's courage and queen energy, gone quiet. Feminist columnists who'd previously rushed to her side in every skirmish, now tweeting cryptic phrases like, "He wasn't wrong." That silence was deafening, and here's why it matters. In the world of celebrity and politics, silence doesn't mean neutrality, it means the tide has shifted. When people stop defending you, it's often not because they disagree, it's because they no longer care enough to fight. That shift didn't come from a scandal. It came from exhaustion. From watching a public figure turn every moment, every recipe, every diary entry, every exhale into a performance. Colin Jost just happened to be the one to say it out loud. His joke about Meghan leaving the toxic palace only to end up in a Montecito mansion filming 5 angles of her healing journey? That didn't just land, it hit a nerve. It was the punchline everyone had been waiting for. Because the problem isn't that Meghan told her story, it's that she never stopped. And over time, what once felt brave began to feel strategic, packaged, processed. You know the type. The Instagram caption that feels more like a TED Talk than a personal post. The podcast monologue that sounds less like vulnerability and more like a brand alignment. That's what Colin was cutting into, not Meghan's pain, but the way it's been marketed, and that's a message the public had clearly been craving. But while Meghan was licking her wounds behind the scenes, the royal family did what they've always done best. In moments like these, absolutely nothing. No comment, no statement. No palace press release, just a silence that felt suspiciously satisfied. Coming up in the next section, we unpack what insiders claim the palace really thought about the roast, and why some say it was exactly the revenge they've been waiting. 4. Asterisk, according to a well-placed palace source quoted in a British tabloid. The SNL segment wasn't just noticed, it was celebrated. Quietly, of course. But genuinely, it was only a matter of time before someone said out loud what we've always known. The source allegedly said, another insider was even more blunt. The joke wrote itself. She's been playing Diana for years. It might sound harsh, even cold, but it reveals something deeper. For years, Meghan and Harry have taken swings at the royal family, often painting themselves as the casualties of a toxic institution. And while Buckingham Palace remained publicly silent, no clapbacks, no rebuttals, you can bet they've been watching. So when Colin Jost dragged Meghan's People's Princess 2.0 branding through the mud with a single punchline, it hit different. Not because it was mean, but because it felt earned. This wasn't the British tabloids launching another attack. This wasn't Piers Morgan screaming on TV. This was SNL, a mainstream American comedy institution, and the audience didn't flinch. They laughed hard. For the royal family, who've weathered years of public criticism from the Sussexes. That kind of public reversal must have tasted sweet, poetic even. Hollywood noticed. Sources at Variety claimed that media execs felt uneasy not because of the content of the jokes, but because of the response. That universal laugh, that rare, unifying yes, finally someone said it moment. In an era where comedy often divides people, Meghan had become a rare exception, uniting both sides in one giant eye roll. And that, more than any negative headline, is the real red flag. In the next part, we'll look at how Meghan's response, or rather, her overreaction, only made things worse, and why some say she accidentally proved Jost's point in real time. Behind closed doors, Meghan Markle was reportedly livid. According to someone close to her circle, she felt ambushed, blindsided by what she saw as a tasteless, misogynistic attack. She believed SNL had crossed a line. That this wasn't satire, it was targeted humiliation. But here's where things spiraled. Because instead of ignoring the sketch, brushing it off with dignity, or letting the internet's short attention span do its thing, Meghan's team pushed back hard. Whispers of disrespect, sexism, and smear campaign began surfacing from her camp. And in doing so, Meghan walked straight into the trap. Because Colin Jost wasn't mocking her as a woman. He was mocking her media strategy, her hyper-branded vulnerability, her performative activism. And by reacting exactly as expected, hurt, outraged, and eager to correct the narrative, she validated the entire joke. This is what critics had been saying for years, that Meghan's instinct isn't to absorb critic hits, to control it. Every headline, every camera angle, every social media ripple. She tries to micromanage the message, but in a moment like this, that instinct becomes her Achilles heel. Because here's the thing about satire. It doesn't respond to PR, it cuts through it. When someone makes a joke that resonates this loudly, no amount of brand damage control can undo the punchline. And once again, Meghan found herself over-explaining, over-defending, and ultimately reinforcing the narrative she was trying to shake. Even her allies in the media, those who had once championed her as a beacon of empowerment, stayed silent, not because they turned on her, but because they realized there was nothing new to say. No defense to mount, no villain to point to, just a truth they could no longer spin. Coming up in the next section, we'll peel back the layers of Meghan's once beloved image and explore how a brand built on authenticity began to feel anything but. Asterisk. Meghan Markle's rise wasn't accidental. It was a masterclass in storytelling. A biracial American actress marries into the most traditional royal family on earth. She champions mental health, feminism, racial equity. She breaks away from royal constraints to speak her truth. It was lightning in a bottle at first, but over time, that narrative started to feel manufactured. At some point, speaking her truth became a content strategy. The documentaries, the podcast monologues, the interviews with tears falling at camera-ready angles, it all felt polished, scripted, packaged, and when vulnerability becomes a product, people stop relating to it. They start questioning it. That's what Colin Jost's roast pierced. Not Meghan's integrity, but the illusion of spontaneity, the idea that every quote, every tear, every revelation might be less about connection and more about conversion clicks, views, brand deals. When Jost said, "That's not trauma, that's content," he wasn't just making a joke. He was naming the elephant in the room, because when every struggle is filmed from 5 angles and released under a streaming deal, the line between healing and monetizing gets blurry. Meghan didn't just share her pain, she franchised it, and that's where the disconnect grew. Between the public and the persona, between the audience and the actress, people didn't stop sympathizing with Meghan because they hated her. They stopped because they no longer knew what was real. That's the kind of fatigue that can't be fixed with a new docuseries or a charity gala appearance. It requires something Meghan hasn't shown in a long time: silence, stillness, space. But instead, she keeps pushing the narrative. And each time, fewer people are buying in. Coming up in the next section, why this moment might mark the beginning of cultural irrelevance, the one thing no celebrity can survive. Asterisk for celebrities, there's one fate worse than being hated, being ignored. And Meghan Markle, once the center of global headlines, might be heading straight for it. See, backlash can be spun, scandal can be rebranded, even criticism can be reframed as courage, but indifference, that's unrecoverable. And that's exactly what's creeping into Meghan's brand now. The shift isn't loud, it's eerily quiet. Not because people are afraid to speak, but because they've stopped bothering. That's what makes Colin Jost's roast so powerful. It wasn't a takedown, it was a release. A cultural sigh that said, "We're done pretending this is working." And the scariest part for Meghan, the laughter didn't come from trolls, it came from everyday people. From fans, from women who once reposted her quotes in podcasts, from progressive circles that once saw her as a symbol of strength. Now, she's becoming a symbol of overexposure. One media executive put it like this: "We didn't cancel Meghan, we just got bored." That's the death sentence of modern fame. Because when people stop arguing about you and start laughing at you, you're no longer part of the movement. You're a punchline. Even SNL didn't need to exaggerate to get the laugh. That's what made it hit so hard. The material wrote itself. She wants privacy while filming a documentary. She wants authenticity. While scripting her healing process, she wants to be taken seriously while launching jam jars with royal cursive branding. None of this is inherently bad, but together, it paints a picture people are tired of looking at. Coming up in the final section, why Meghan's reaction may have sealed her fate, and what happens when the final word comes from a joke, not a press release. Asterisk for someone who built her entire brand on controlling the narrative. Meghan Markle just experienced her worst-case scenario, because this time, she didn't get the last word. The final word came from a joke, a 30-second roast, delivered by a stone-faced comedian on live TV. A punchline that ricocheted through social media, echoed across entertainment boardrooms, and quietly redefined her image in the minds of millions. And here's the twist. The most damaging part wasn't that Colin just mocked her, it's that she responded. Had she laughed it off, let it fade, or even ignored it entirely, passed as another late-night jab, but by reacting, by signaling that the sketch hit a nerve, Meghan confirmed what many had long suspected, that her image isn't as unshakable as she wants it to be, because authenticity doesn't panic. Vulnerability doesn't retaliate, and people who truly don't care about optics don't respond to jokes. But Meghan did, loudly, emotionally, predictably. And that's why this roast will stick, not as a moment of cruelty, but as a cultural correction. The moment the public stopped nodding along with the narrative and started laughing at the absurdity of it all, the irony. Meghan Markle once had the power to move nations with a single interview, but now, a comedian with a smirk and a script rewrote the ending. And maybe that's what stings the most, because no matter how many podcasts she records, how many products she launches, or how many truths she tells, the only thing anyone will remember from this chapter is the laugh, the one she didn't control, the one she didn't script, the one that landed like a mic drop. If you've made it this far and enjoy bold, unfiltered commentary that cuts through the noise, make sure you subscribe right now. We're just getting started, and trust us, the next takedown might be even bigger.